is Audrey, and I am the support for Net Digital Solutions. And so I'll be helping you all through autos as well as doing any support tickets. So in the future, if you need to contact me, me and a few other people from our staff will be helping you out. So awesome. So, and also the chat is active. So if you have any questions, you can certainly put any questions in there, and we have a team answering that as well. So, Trish, did you want to kick it off by saying anything before I get into it?
Oh, hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. I know some of you have taken this Net Digital training before, but there have been some changes and some updates. So hang in there with us. And as a matter of fact, you might need a refresher because you probably haven't used the system that much. So welcome, and feel free to ask Audrey or myself any questions you like. Thanks, Audrey.
Thank you, Trish. I appreciate it. And so there will be some, we'll be going through the system here, and there are some updates. So thank you so much if you're here again, because it is good to always have that continuing education as we try to make the system either better, more user-friendly, or answer any of those questions that might come up as you start using the system too. So you may ask, what is AUTOS? Why do I have to use it? That kind of thing. AUTOS is the Automobile Use Tracking online system that DOL as a whole uses. Now, Job Corps is a separate agency, and it's within DOL, but y'all have some nuances. So that's why we like to have a separate training for you all. So we're going to touch on a few of those things. And when I am done with this meeting, I will send you all out the updated user guide. I did do a few more things. I added frequently asked questions and stuff like that. So I will send that out to you. And so getting started, why is maintaining autos and GSA drive-through and how that impacts our fast submission? So it is critical to our mission that we keep GSA drive-through updated, which in turn feeds back to autos. And if it's an agency-owned vehicle, it's important that we just get all of that information input into autos as well. So when you log into the system, you'll just need to do that monthly. What you're doing is you are reviewing and making sure that all of that data is correct. And that helps you as vehicle contacts and your fleet manager just stay on top of the data. And then there's so many aspects of that. You all know this. This is not your only job as well. It can be really overwhelming. So what we try to do is make it so it's easy as possible for you to, go through all of those data elements. And then the FAST report at the end of the year is the Federal Automotive Statistical Tool. And that is a federally mandated report that we have to submit to every December 15th. So if we are keeping our data clean throughout the year, it makes that so much easier when we have to go to submit. And when we go through this, I will let you know what are some of the common errors that happen, and what FAST is for as well. So those are just a couple of reasons why it is super important. And then some housekeeping is, what if I do not understand a section in autos? So you would contact, support at netdigitalsolutions.com. You may also contact Trish. She might know a specific question if that pertains to your fleet or your vehicle. So we kind of work together in that. And then if you are experiencing any technical difficulties or a bug in the system, then you would directly contact support because Trish doesn't know the back end of the system. That's us. So that's support at netdigitalsolutions.com. Okay, and then when you are sending that over, it's great if you can show us a screenshot of that issue and then just be as detailed as possible. Okay. And so does anybody have any questions before I move on to the system? Okay, so accessing autos. when you go to log in, you should have this URL, and then you'll hit the sign on button, and you're going to use your government email address or your JCC address. And then you should have a password if I've sent that information to you. If not, you may be able to say, I forgot my password, and that would send you a link to your email address, and then you'd be able to create your password. Now, sometimes the link, either you don't get it, it gets sent to your spam or something like that. So in that instance, you could definitely contact support@netdigitalsolutions.com, and I can send you your temporary password. Okay, so those are the first things. I'm not going to go on through all of the frequently asked questions, but I just wanted to let you know that they are there. So these are some from our previous trainings. And, if you have any questions, sometimes they can be answered here, and that can be used for you to refer back to. If you have your sound on, can you yourself?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, and then resetting your password, you're going to want to go in the top right-hand corner. I can show you in the system here. When you go to log on, you will do that. And then you guys are going to see a whole bunch of stuff because I'm a super admin. So you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. We have these tool tips as well now, so they should help you as you go through. They're specific to each page. But if we're going to reset our password, you go to the sign off button, and then it will bring up this, and you'll just say reset password. So that's once you've logged in. If you don't like the temporary password, then you can just reset it. So that's kind of going through that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to impersonate someone so that I can view everything as a vehicle contact or as a fleet manager. So what I want to do is this is what your screen would look like if you sign on. And you're going to see, the magic bar. This is what we call the magic bar. And this is really all of your flag data elements. And what you can do is click on any of the gray portion, and it's going to expand it so that it's easier to see. Now, say that you don't want to see it at all. You can hide it. So sometimes what we got the feedback for, and if you had been using the site for a while, it was always there. And so some of our feedback was it takes up too much of the page, things like that. So we made it so that you can kind of hide it. So, but you can do that. And then you can kind of see everything at a glance. But for ours, we want to see it so that we can know what we are working through. So you would go here, and mostly what, vehicle contacts are going to be doing is looking under my vehicles and then working to correct some of these issues. So when we go under my vehicles, you'll be able to see here that you can search. It's always, the status is active normally. So you can make it go to all if you're trying to look for all vehicles, maybe that had been disposed of. But you should have a list here of, what your vehicles are and some information about them. If I can have whoever that is, please mute themselves. Okay, so when you go here, you'll be able to, what you'll mostly be doing is going to the edit. And you can see here all of the different information about the vehicle. And what we like to do here is just make sure that all of this data is correct. And, maybe you happen upon a vehicle that doesn't have an ownership type, or we need to put in a state tag expiration, those kind of things. If it's missing some information, you might want to go ahead and add it. One of the new features, and it's different than, you guys had seen before, is to update the address. You'll notice that this is grayed out. And the reason for that is we are trying to, in conjunction with another DOL project, standardize all the addresses. And there's a long, complicated answer for that. But what we want is just to have really good, clean addresses that match up with all of the DOL buildings. So what we have is like kind of preventing you from changing it unless the address has already been approved. So you'll go in, you'll update the address, and then clear the existing one out. And then you could start typing, another address. Let's see. So say this is the new address that you wanted to use, you would click this button, and since it's already approved, it would go ahead and change it. But say the address that you want to change it to isn't there already. Then you would go to the request address addition, and you would type in the address that you want, and just pay special attention to this because we want to make sure that it's the physical garaged address. So that means that there's no suite numbers, there's no PO boxes, and then we want to make sure that it's consistent with maybe the rest of the way that people type it. So if we're typing Boulevard, make sure that it's, the standardized BLVD, that kind of thing. So then you would say email support. And when you email it to support, it's going to headquarters, the project managers, and they on the DOL side are going to review that address. They have to research it, and then they're going to approve it as soon as they've completed that. So that's that for the edit to the vehicle record. The next one that you're probably going to get a lot of use out of is the contacts feature. Now for the contacts feature, this is really great because now it's not just you having to take care of all of these vehicles all by yourself. Say that you go on vacation and you want to add, your second in command. You can go here and say add vehicle contact. You just copy and paste their email address into this or type it. I'm going to say and then it is kind of strange in that there's no save button, but you just click outside of it. Once you click outside of it, it has been added. So now you'll see my name here. And then say that we don't want to do that anymore, we can delete it. Okay, and then you can add up to 20 different contacts in here. So this is really just to help you. In GSA, you have access to like your vehicles, but here you have access to have other people. You can delegate that to other people. If somebody is there to help you with your, your odometer readings or your AIEs, if there's someone in the department that you trust that can do that, you would just have them get access to the site and then they can be a vehicle contact. So does anybody have any questions about those two things that I covered? Okay, awesome. I also, just to backtrack a little bit, I had a meeting the other day with, one of the users, and he was just confused about, what exactly do we do when we go into the site? What are we using it for? And so once you've logged in and once you see all your vehicles, it can be a tracking tool, but it is also used by Department of Labor to kind of clean up the information, because sometimes GSA can either give us wrong data or they aren't flagging the things that we are interested in. So what I'm going to show you next is how exactly we go about confirming that GSA's data is correct. So that is in, so going back to the vehicles as well, what do I do if I don't see one of my vehicles? you would definitely either contact me at support@netdigitalsolutions.com. And that's the same if you see vehicles that are not yours. I did have this question come through in support the other day, and it could be that you're associated with vehicles that you might not have known, like somebody else gave you access to those vehicles. So you can go through and remove them yourself, or you can contact me and I can help you out with that. And if you don't see one of your vehicles, I'd be happy to give you access to that particular vehicle. Okay, so now going back to the magic bar, the data elements. The one that has really changed is the fuel and miles. That is now become the odometer. So we're going to go through that, and I'm going to kind of get into depth about that. That's the one that a lot of people have questions about. So our flag data elements, or we call it the magic bar for short, is the dashboard so that you can have an overview of all of your flag data. And this information comes in monthly from GSA, but it is normally 1 month behind. So for example, we are now in February 7th. You're going to be reviewing data for the month of January. So that's kind of how we do it. You can log on, once a month or, every couple of weeks to see that. But we just need that done, on a monthly basis to review the prior month's data. Okay, and then so this is also a way for everybody to stay in contact with each other, because your fleet manager can see your progress and your other vehicle contacts can see your progress as well. Okay, so for the challenging one. So if you've been a part of the system before, you knew it as fuel and miles, and that was where you had to address every single fuel transaction that your car had, and you would have to review that and certify it. And so we thought, okay, there should be a better way for us to do that, and this is what we came up with. Instead of going through each fuel transaction, we are going with the ending odometer of that month. And so you will just look at that ending odometer to make sure that it's correct, and then going through month after month. So some things that we want to note here is that, at the beginning of January, I did have a few people saying, okay, well, my January data wasn't up there yet. So the data is 1 month behind, and most of the time it does come around like the 5th of the month. So if you all can log in, I would say like either the 6th, the 7th, right after that, and then you should see your January data. It is there now, actually. So it just takes a few days for that data to be uploaded to us. The next thing is when you are confirming this data, you're not just going through and, checking these boxes, because what we really want to do is make sure that the data is accurate. Sometimes when people are fueling at the pump, they can make, errors because you're going and you're quick and you're in a hurry, and you may add an extra 0 or another digit at the end, or you may, completely, get it all mixed up. So like invert some of the numbers. So what we want to do here is make sure that there's no negative miles traveled. So a vehicle can't be at, 49,000 and then go backwards to 30,000. So we will flag any of that to identify it. And then we also will flag, some things that are flagged in fast that might prevent us from having good data quality, such as like if a vehicle goes over 1,000 miles in a month. Now that is possible, so you can certainly still review it and check this box. It's just that maybe we want to look into that and see, did this vehicle really go, that many miles over the course of the month? Because it's not common. So there are a few other odometer tips that I have down here, and when you get this document, you'll be able to, review them. So high mileages, high MPG, or any other anomalies. And then another one that you might see is 3 consecutive months with no fuel, gallons, or miles. So you will see this little flag here. And then when you hover over it, let's go in here, you will see that it tells you exactly what the flag is. So we can go in here and you'll see here. So it says January 23, not validated, and then 1,000 miles in a single month. So this also keeps track of the total miles in the fiscal year, the total gallons, and the total MPG. So also if you click or highlight over this, just hover over it, it will give you more information about the vehicle. You can also, if you want, click on this to see the fuel transactions, just to see, you know, make sure that everything's good there. But really what we wanted to do is just simplify this process so you're not, you know, going through trying to edit the fuel and the gallons and things like that. What we're really, really concerned about in FAST is ensuring that the odometers are correct. So one thing I did want to mention is that we did get a request for these vehicles to be put in numerical order. And that is something that we're working on. It's just a little bit challenging. There is an error within there, and it looks like we fixed it on some end, and then it hasn't been fixed. So if that is something that you all need as well, that is an update that's coming soon. We just have to push that update and find that error. So does anybody have any questions about the odometer cleanup screen?
Yeah, Audrey, you do have one hand raised.
Okay, perfect. What's your question?
I have some buses, and we've been having trouble with the batteries on them, and they was in the shop for quite a while. So I really wasn't able to put miles on them.
Oh yeah, and so that is a valid reason not to have any miles. And I think what will happen is that it's still flagged in FAST, but if we can give them like that reason, we can say that it's in the shop, then they won't ding us for that.
Right, and then how do you do that?
So that is a good question. I think right now, just make a note of it on your log. And what Trish has actually asked me to do is be able to add notes to a particular vehicle. But I do not believe that that's been completed yet. Okay. So let's see. I'm just going in here to see if it has. No, it hasn't been completed yet. So what will happen is we can put either a notes page on the vehicle page, or we can put it on that odometer page so you can say, you know, why you're addressing that.
Yeah. Okay. When I also have another question.
Mm-hmm.
When after I get a recall done, I go into recalls.
Mm-hmm.
And just upload the information off the paperwork, or?
Yes. So when you do that, you're just verifying that the recall has been, you know, seen, and it's, you know, you're taking care of it, because we can't take care of it within autos, but we just want to make sure that you're alerted to the fact that there's a recall before it turns into an incurred expense.
Right. Yeah, I had it fixed, though. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So, yeah, so then you would just go to open recalls, and then if you have the supporting documentation, you can, or you can just
can you scan it and upload it or anything, or just?
You can actually upload it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So I will show that in just a second, because you can upload the documents, and then you also put like the dates that it was taken care of and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it took a while to get that part it needed. You know, sometimes you run into that problem where they don't have the parts yet. And
yeah.
Then you gotta wait.
Yeah, sometimes it can take quite a few months. And what we like to do is actually keep track of that, and just in case the GSA comes back to tell us, oh, like sometimes GSA will make that into an agency incurred expense as if we hadn't taken care of it. But what was really happening was we're waiting on a part. So it wasn't your fault that you were, so we could use that in order to get your money back. So
Okay.
that's why we kind of like to track it within the system and have, you know, as much information as we can, so that you have something to kind of go back to them with and be like, hey, look, we were taking care of it. We have paperwork back from this date.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
And one more question. We park our vehicles like next door because we don't have room on our property. So we use you know, a big parking lot. Is that the address I should put down for them?
Let's see. What center are you at?
Cincinnati Job Corps.
Okay. Trish, do you happen to know what garage address they're using? Is it?
I would have to look it up, but I think I would say, just so I don't get confused, just use the center address. Is that okay, Audrey?
Okay, I was just wondering because it said physical, you know.
Yeah. So I think I might need to check with Eric to see what we're using and what we're using in FAST. So I can definitely do that after this call. I made a note to myself, and then we can get with you afterwards to double check. But I'll note, Trish, that we would like to use, because I think it needs to be associated with the government. So I would say to the center address, but
I understand.
I just want to clarify that. So I'm 100%.
It has to do with billing also. It has to do with billing, where they're sending the bill, I think.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that answered my questions.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I will definitely get an answer to you and CC you in on that, as well as you, Trish, because I know that what we want to have them standard for, you know, making sure that they're all associated with a government building. But I don't know how that will work, because we also want to make sure that we have the correct addresses for the EV charging stations. So it's a little bit of a both and type thing.
Right.
So I'll see what he wants to do in that instance.
There's a couple more questions. Hands up, I see. I'm not sure if they still have questions. And there's a gentleman.
Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, how you doing? Mr. Dondi Burrows from the New Haven Job Corps Center. Hope everybody's doing well.
Hello?
Yes, I'm just the point of contact. I'm the safety and security manager, but I'm also the point of contact for transportation. My question is, I know that we have a requirement to use the vehicles and run them during the month and put so many miles on them. But my question is, what about some of the, like we have the 18, the passenger, we have the bigger vehicles that we don't utilize a lot and we don't put that many miles on them. What do we do in a case like that when we do have those vehicles that are required to have so many miles during the month, but because we don't use them that much, how do we justify the, you know, the mileage?
So that is a good question. And so what you will do is, it's not so much like you need to change your habits as much as when you see that maybe it's flagged because it has, you know, less miles than what FAST thinks you should have. We just need a place, and that is a great, you know, somebody else brought that up. We need a note section here where you can put in here, you know, it's not frequently used. But this also goes back to this past year we did the VAM. And the VAM is making sure that all the vehicles in your fleet are necessary. And when you do the VAM, you'd want to make sure that you either say that vehicle, it's underutilized, but it's still mission critical. Or you would say, oh, okay, we actually don't use this vehicle as much as we thought we did. And you know, we don't need it anymore. So those would be kind of the options whenever the next VAM comes around for you. But in this instance, you don't need to change anything about your behavior. It just kind of flags things that are maybe out of the ordinary or something that you might want to catch.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're
If I
welcome.
if I could interject for a second,
Of course.
one thing, Dundee, I recommend is if you can, switch the vehicles around. If you're not using a vehicle in a particular area, switch it with one, if you can, switch it with
Okay.
one that you're using a lot, so you can get the wear and tear more evenly. Also, when you do enter the odometer reading, don't fudge it. If you didn't drive the vehicle all month and the odometer stays the same, put the same odometer reading in.
Yeah.
Just put the actual odometer reading in there. Don't make anything up. Just keep it
Yeah.
real. Okay, thanks.
Gotcha.
Exactly. And that is super important to Ron as well, getting accurate data. And so the flag in itself is not to let you know that something is wrong, which is why we want you to review it. Because you can drive over 1,000 miles in a month. It's possible. It's just it's not as common. So we try to alert you to the fact that, you know, there might be something off with this. But you can still go ahead and check mark it and put it as green. And once we get those notes in there, you can just be like, oh, you know, there was a trip to like out of state or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Just getting a little bit more granular with the vehicle to make sure when it comes to fast, they're not like, oh, well, this data is all over the place and we don't know why. Because it's a little bit harder at the end of the year when you don't know what's happened, you know, back in January, that kind of thing.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did we have any more questions?
You still
I
have
see a
two
couple
hands
hands
raised.
up.
Okay.
Amy Rogers, go ahead. You're unmuted. Do you have a question? How about Karen? Do you have a question? You're unmuted. Go ahead. Okay. How about Hawaii? You've got your hand up. Scott Franks, you have your hand up. If you have your hand up, go ahead and say your question.
And the password that I'm putting in isn't working. You put in your password for your
I couldn't make that out. What was that question? Okay, if you don't speak up and have a question, we're going to move on, Audrey.
Okay, sounds good. And if you are having maybe mic trouble and you want to ask the question, definitely go ahead and ask it in the chat. And you know, Brandy or Trish can shout that out to me, and I can stop at any time. So, you know, feel free. Especially these questions are really good to help us, you know, make the site better and also to give everybody else a better understanding. So we love any kind of participation. So the next thing that we're going to go to is the agency incurred expenses. And that is also a little bit complicated, not going to lie to you, but it is very valuable information in the sense that this can save you money. So this is great. It's like a credit card statement, a transaction receipt, where we bring over the information from GSA's bill. So you're only going to get these, you know, really for the GSA vehicles. But you're going to see, okay, why are they charging me an administrative fee for $12? You know, $12, it's not a lot of money, but over time that can add up. So we want to just make sure, okay, it was charged that amount on that date, that looks correct. All right, moving forward, we're going to go ahead, go here, and you can review it, add the date, and comment, or you can upload a document as well. This challenge feature right here is if you check this button, it's basically going to alert you in a report. So then at the end of everything that you've done, you can say, I want to go to the challenged ones. So then you would say yes. And then you could go to the ones that you've challenged and you could export that to Excel. And that way you could reach back out to your fleet manager if you need to, or your FSR and say, you know, hey, I have a couple of questions about these charges. So it's basically a reporting tool and a flagging tool, sorting through the information that is a little bit hard to distinguish on GSA's website. So, you know, what we just have you do is review these AIEs. Okay, everything looks good. You know, there was a windshield, is an accident. We're going to go here. We reviewed it, added the date, and you can save it once you've added all that information. And then it will fall off your list. And what the goal is to get to 100%. So as that. Let's go to the presentation just to make sure that I hit all of those points. Okay, so also what we want to look out for are duplicate charges or things that should have been covered under the lease. For instance, if you're getting a car wash once a month, that should be covered, or an oil change. Some of those things are covered under your lease with GSA, and they'll charge you for them. You know, maybe you're getting them more often than you should, or, you know, it was a result of it was like we waited too long for the oil change. In those instances, it becomes an agency incurred expense. But you want to make sure, just like you were reviewing your credit card statement, that the charges there are correct. And if you're only getting one car wash, then hey, that should be covered and GSA should not be charging you for that. And you could potentially get that money back for your agency. So,
Hey, Audrey, can I interject with a question that is related to what we're going over that I think is perfect right now?
absolutely.
So there's an example in the chat of someone that has a vehicle that's on recall right now and it's taking a while to get into the shop. Can you go over how they make sure that they do not get any AIEs as a result of the delay for the recall being taken care of?
Absolutely. So that is, you know, another great part is that some of these things can turn into AIEs. And so before they get to that point, we tell you overdue service and we tell you open recalls. So for that example, you know, under open recall, we can see there's these 2 recalls. And if we don't get this taken care of in a timely manner, which I'm not exactly sure, I think it's 6 months for recalls. If it's outside of that time, GSA may charge you. So what you want to do is go here, say reviewed, put the date that maybe you got the work done, and then any notes that you have. And if you have some supporting documentation, you'd want to add that here. And then you would want to contact your FSR and say, we are, you know, if you want to, you can send them this report. You can send them the documentation and say, we are waiting on this part and it's going to be maybe 2-3 more months. You know, it's sitting in the shop. Here's my documentation. And then that way GSA is aware that you are taking care of it. So just to be clear, this site is not attached to GSA. So you would still need to reach out to your your FSR with GSA or your fleet manager, like say you're a vehicle contactor, you know, if you don't have the authority to do that, you would give that to your fleet manager. But if you contact your GSA FSR, give them this information, they will work on that. But at least in the site, you are able to keep track of those recalls and the pertinent information. And that will kind of keep it organized for you. Because what happens to, say that today, I go ahead and I clear this out. If next month, for next month's cycle, GSA still has that recall on there, this will show as open again. And that's letting you know, okay, well, GSA still has me as this as an open recall. I might need to contact them. So does that make sense?
Yeah, the only thing sorry, Bob Rainey from Exeter Job Corps.
Oh,
The only
nope.
thing I'm confused about, I've owned many cars and everything else like that. Once it's a recall from the dealership, that doesn't go away. How do they charge you after 6 months? That doesn't sound logical.
It's just like, so say for instance, this one says the transmission shifter cable. So if there's a recall and it's sent out to everybody, but you for some reason either don't see this recall, or you aren't aware, or you just don't care. If something happens to that transmission, GSA,
Okay,
within
that's a
the lease.
all right. I understand now. That's a different point. Okay,
Yeah.
I was just talking about the actual recall. Okay,
Oh.
if it causes damage, I understand that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that's how it turns into an AIE when you don't
Okay.
take care of it for so long, or but it's not necessarily saying that you need to take care of it within 6 months. It's just that GSA has a particular date at which, if it's not taken care of, then they can then charge you for it. So so we have seen that happen. And then we are able to maybe get the money back if we know, okay, it's been in the shop for the past 6 months. We're waiting on that part. And if they're trying to charge us for that part now. But it's just we're kind of trying to make sure that GSA doesn't try to charge us for things that are supposed to be covered under the lease, if that makes sense. Okay, did anybody else have any questions about recalls or how they can turn into AIEs?
There's one question in the chat from a recall. Her mic's not working. Can you go over, if you have a recall that's 3 weeks from now, how do you know that it's still open?
Okay. I'm not sure that I understand the question. You're saying that it's 3 weeks and it's going to take place in 3 weeks?
I'm sorry. Let me reread it to you.
Okay.
How do you know 3 weeks from now that you still have an open recall? So once you've closed it out, you've made note, and you review it. How do you know 3 weeks from now that you still have an open one? Are you following, or do you need it reworded?
Let me see if this is going to answer the question.
Okay.
So if you like say today, I'm closing it out, I've reviewed it, but the work has not been done yet, then the system is still going to bring that up in the next month cycle. So when GSA is notified that you've completed the recall, that's when it's going to completely fall off our list. So it's kind of a cycle with GSA, because AUTOS is actually a repository. It's the source. GSA is our source of data. So it's going to keep coming in until it's taken care of at that source. So 3 weeks from now, if you still have that recall, that means that it hasn't been taken care of at that level. What you're doing in AUTOS is just reviewing that you know that this recall is here and that you have to take care of it. And you can even say, like, okay, I've scheduled a service appointment, and you can kind of keep track of it there. Does that answer the question?
Yep, she said that answers it perfectly. And then David, I see that you have your hand up if you want to ask your question as well.
All right, my question is, I have 5 AIE charges from vehicles that are at another center listed on mine right now.
Okay, so that may be because you are associated with some vehicles, in error, like somebody had added you in an error. If you could go ahead and send those vehicles to me, like take a screenshot of that, of the vehicles that are not yours, I can remove you from those.
Will do. Appreciate it.
Okay. Let's see. Alrighty. So those are, the AIEs, and you can also do, like filter it if you want to see the ones that are over 5,000 or over 1,000. You can go ahead and do that. You should be able to, sort in any which way and create that export to Excel. So I believe that we covered all of the AIEs. So now we can go to the address. And what I'm going to want to do here is I'm just going to switch over to my demo site. You'll see here so that I can enter in an address and you can see that happen in real time. But it's kind of like what we were talking about before. Let's see. What we were talking about before is, you know, making sure that the addresses are the physical location of the vehicle and that they are, you know, they are as correct as possible. Now, obviously, there's potential for human error, but just pay extra attention to detail when you're typing that in. And then our site will try to give you, you know, some suggestions on how that's worded, you know, based on some Google recommendations. So that's kind of what it's going to look like in here. And every vehicle needs a garage address. So that's why most of the time you will see this vehicle. I mean, this one mostly is going to be 100% for a lot of people because most people, it's already associated with an address. It's just, you know, for some of the stragglers or the agency-owned vehicles that might not have it. So this is the demo site again. So these aren't real live information, but you would see here that there's the billing address that we've brought over from the bill. There's the garage address and the customer address. So what we really want to do is try to use that garage address without having any suite numbers or anything like that. You would start typing. And then, let's see, Evans, MA, 1, 4, 3, 4. Okay, so once you do that and you save, it's going to take a little bit and it's going to update that. And then that is going to fall off the list. And now you only have 9 more to go. So it's going to kind of do that all the way up until you hit 100%. And that's what we want. We want it to look nice and green like this. Does anybody have any questions about the addresses? Okay.
Oh, hold on, Audrey, you just had a hand go up.
Yep.
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, about the addresses, we're getting ready to, I believe, get another van. It's going to be like a plug-in, a hybrid.
Yeah.
And we don't have that many. We do have one on our center, but if we get another van, we might need to get another plug per se.
Oh, okay. So I think we would need to request that at a higher level, but you can definitely send that maybe over to Trish and then we can get that to Ron so that we can, you know, give you the necessary infrastructure that you might need.
Yeah, because we have one plug, but we don't have no more than one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
And I believe the one van, we're getting ready to trade it for a new one, I guess. And then we have another one that's not far behind that. It's probably going to be soon after that.
Well, that sounds great. And it's, you know, I know that right now it's also like a lot of people are getting the new vehicles. We just completed the CAM cycle. So there may also be some people that need, you know, additional infrastructure. Some people are getting like 0 emissions vehicles, like electric vehicles and stuff like that. So if you have any of those requests, it's not, I'm not the person that request would be approved or denied from, but I believe if you send it to Trish, then we can always ask our, you know, fleet leadership and they can talk to the appropriate people about that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Are they looking for an electric vehicle charging station? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we don't have, we only have one on our center.
You actually have an electric vehicle charging station?
Well, it's a that you just plug in, just like you would
Yeah.
at any household.
Yeah, exactly. Because none of the Job Corps centers, I just want everybody to know there aren't any Job Corps centers that have an electric vehicle charging station yet, but you can plug in an electric vehicle into a normal outlet. But I hope all of you are getting the plugins that take fuel, which is a hybrid, because I don't want you guys getting tow trucks to come and get you, rescue you after your battery runs out.
Exactly.
They
I
take,
believe it is part gas and part electric.
okay, good. So if you can't charge it, you can always use the fuel. All right,
Yes,
thanks.
ma'am. All right, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Does anybody else have a question about the addresses?
Audrey, in the chat, someone is asking how they get the address info for the center they work at.
Okay, so that is a granular question. I think that we would have to ask Trish, how would they know what their center address is or what their garage address is?
Well, first of all, can they unmute and ask the question? Because if you don't know where you work, that's a problem. I don't understand the question. The address is where you park the vehicle at night. So if it's a Job Corps center, you obviously, I hope, you park the vehicle at the Job Corps center. I know there was a situation where they parked next door, but I'm not following the question. Are you guys, Audrey, are you following that question? I don't.
No, I wanted to ask out loud because I'm confused by the question.
Okay, so if the person, Marcelo, I think is his name, can you unmute and talk to us about it?
Yeah, and maybe you are like new at your position and you're not sure exactly what address to put in here. So I would get, you know, the main center address and put that in without any of the suite numbers and stuff like that. Or definitely, maybe if you have a question, you can send that to support@netdigitalsolutions.com and we can verify that address. But as I was saying before, most of the time the address is already associated with the vehicle. It may come up, like say that if you change a vehicle location from one center to another, there may come a time when that happens and you would need to change the address, but it's not often that it's not associated with an address already. So it shouldn't be too big of a concern, but yes, it should be, you know, that address. And then we will get more clear guidance on, you know, the previous situation where they were parking next door. So I can send that out as well to everybody.
I'll take care of his question. I'll find out what center he's from and send him his address.
Okay, thank you. And so the next one that we're going to go to is the assignment. So the assignment type, let me go here so that I can work within it.
Post and Job Corps.
So for the assignment type, you know, this is a fast requirement. So what we want to make sure that we do is have every vehicle have an assignment type. And this may be a little bit confusing because you're like, okay, what does all of this stuff mean? Individual, office, pooled, shared. So we have some of the definitions on the site here. We just keep forgetting to put the shared definition. That's the one that keeps getting lost. But the individual, and Trish is saying that none of the Job Corps are individual vehicles. So we can take that one off the table. The office is that the vehicle is assigned to and available for use by the personnel in a certain office. In a pool, your vehicle is assigned to a motor pool for use by multiple offices. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, Trish, but a shared vehicle is like assigned to a few different people and those people can use the vehicle.
Well, I always get shared and pooled and office confused. But the point is that all vehicles are shared. They're shared between people, instructors, departments, and no vehicle is ever assigned to an individual specific person. So if an instructor thinks they're going to get their own vehicle, no, not happening. If a center director thinks they're going to get their own vehicle, no, not happening. Okay, so I have to honestly, Audrey, I have to look up in my notes. I don't know why you guys have to use words that are so similar. Office, pooled, shared. To me, it all means the same thing. So I have to look it up in my notes.
Okay. So it's not us though, it's FAST. So for the rest of DOL, they have these different distinctions, and in FAST, they make us choose one of these. But I do believe that you had said that all JCC vehicles are shared. So those should already be associated, but I wanted to go over this in case, you know, there was a straggler that maybe wasn't identified, and so that they would know. So when you go down here, you would say the shared, and then you could save that record. So that would be for the missing assignment type, but you know, for the most part, as you can see here, the assignment types are already created. It might just be, you know, if you get another vehicle and that vehicle doesn't come over from GSA, then you would need to input that information.
Can I just answer a quick question to everybody for Delaware Valley? Hi, Amanda. She's asking about if you have various sites. We do have some centers that have like pilot sites and OA sites and off-center locations. I would recommend that if the vehicles are assigned to an OA site, you put the OA site address for that vehicle. If the vehicle is assigned to what do you call it? A pilot center, I would recommend that you use that address, because sometimes they're quite a distance away from the Job Corps Center. Okay, and I just think that the one that has the parking lot right next door to the center, I just think that that would just be the actual center's address, because they're right next door.
Okay. And then the next one is a vehicle contact. And so for vehicle contact, again, most of this is going to come over already, because if it comes from GSA, you're already associated with the vehicle. But there's sometimes, you know, if a vehicle, say with Job Corps, there's a lots of, you know, leaving or changing positions and things like that. And the vehicle, we have a missing space. So for that, you would want to go here and add a vehicle contact, and you would put in the name. So you can do that in the similar way of, let's see, I wonder if it'll. You just put in the email address and then say add a new person. And then if this person is not in the system, it will ask you for this information and it will create them an account. Okay. Does anybody have a question about missing vehicle contact? Okay. And then going to the missing tag. Again, it's not very often that you have a missing tag. Most of the time it comes over with that information. This would mostly be like, say we have a new vehicle or it's an agency owned vehicle and this information just didn't get imported. You would, you know, very, very carefully make sure that you are putting in the correct tag, you know, that the spacing is appropriate and stuff like that. And then you would go ahead and save that record and then it'll fall off your list. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the missing tag information? Okay, so for the separated contact, this is more for your information, for also for like the fleet manager and headquarters information. What we do is we have a, we get records from all of DOL about the people who have left DOL. And so if your name happens to be on that list and you are a part of a vehicle, or, you know, associated with a vehicle, we know that. And so we say, okay, this person has left the department. We are going to need to assign all of his vehicles to someone else. So this is more, there's nothing really that you need to do here. It's just for this your information. Okay. The next portion is kind of like what we were talking about before with overdue service. So while that's loading, let me go to the section for overdue service. Okay. So the system alerts you when a service is missed. And this is not necessarily, this is not, you know, AUTOS telling you that a service is missed. This is GSA letting you know that a service has been missed in their system. This can be accurate or it can be inaccurate. So during COVID, you know, there was many vehicles that had not been driven for a while, but they were still saying, you know, you need to get the oil changed, things like that. And if the service is missed and not completed within a certain amount of time, that can then turn into an agency incurred expense. So what we did during that time, you know, of course they knew that it was COVID. We would just say, hey, this vehicle has, you know, been sitting in the lot for a long time. It doesn't need an oil change right now. And then you could prevent that agency incurred expense from happening. So that's why we like to alert you that that's okay. This vehicle, it has an overdue, you know, inspection or oil change or whatever the case may be. You know, for this vehicle here, you would go and say, okay, I review that. I know it. I understand it. I'm certifying that. And then I'll be like, okay, the service has been scheduled. Okay, if you have any documents, maybe you already took care of the service, you would want to upload that here. And this way you have some historical information. So then when I go to the certified yes column, I should see the ones that are yes, that are green. Okay, does anybody have any questions about overdue service?
Yes, there's a question in the chat, Audrey.
Okay.
Can you tell in the system what the service missed was?
No. So it doesn't tell us in the file that comes over what the service is. So if this is just letting you know that there is a service that was missed, unfortunately. So if that information does become available, we will certainly add another column. But right now it just kind of tells us that it's overdue. Is there any other questions? Okay. So the next one, I'll just go through briefly because we already touched on it, is the open recalls. So for that, again, similar procedure, just making sure that we are aware that the recall is, you know, taking place, that the manufacturer has issued this recall and that we've reviewed it and that we know, you know, like this person here, still waiting on dealership for parts. You know, they put in a lot of information here. And then, you know, other people can communicate within that. So it can be a good place to, you know, communicate or just keep a historical, like a tracking of that. Okay. The next one is accidents. So every year, you know, we do it's like an OSHA safety report on the vehicles, and we have to report like how many accidents there were and things of that nature. So this comes over again from GSA. And so what we like to do here is just make sure that all the data is correct. And by that, I mean, like, so a government struck the parked POV. Do we want to make sure, did that really happen? Or, you know, was it the other way around? It says the at fault was the government. Is the GSA record stating everything correctly? Because obviously GSA doesn't want to pay out money if they don't have to, but neither do we. So we would gonna go ahead here and say, you know, we reviewed it, the date, and put a comment in there. And so say that this information is not correct, you could bring this information back to your GSA FSR. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the accident? All right. So going on to the next one, the missing SMS info, okay, I think that's just in the demo portion, so I'm not going to go through that now. This may be a part of another training. Just to give you like a little overview though, SMS is what the building management portion of DOL is called. So the space management system, and that's where we will be like standardizing the addresses. So that's upcoming, but it's not complete yet, and it's not rolled out to you all yet. Okay, and then I don't think the state tag one is not out there yet either. So we'll just do the build after disposal, and then that one will be the last one.
Can I just interrupt? Job Corps never uses state tags. So I'll just clarify that. Job Corps only has GSA leased vehicles and Department of Labor agency owned vehicles. We don't use state tags.
Okay, perfect. So we don't even need to worry about that. So when we roll that out to everybody else, we'll just hide it from Job Corps. Okay. So for the build after disposal, this is something that, you know, also brings a lot of questions. So please feel free to ask them. But what it's really saying is that there is a vehicle that was marked as disposed, and then 3 or more months later, I'm still getting charged for it. So think again about your credit card. I, you know, canceled my Netflix subscription in, you know, November, but I'm still being charged now in the month of February. Why? I want to know. So when you think about it in that way, there are a couple of reasons why a vehicle may be charged, and it could be correct, but it also could be an erroneous charge from GSA. So we ask that you review that in order to make sure that it's correct. So according to Ron, who is the fleet manager for DOL, there are multiple reasons for getting a bill for a vehicle after the disposal date. One of those is it actually hasn't been disposed. Maybe it was marked incorrectly, or it was marked as disposed, but then we still decided to use it because we didn't get the new vehicle we wanted, something like that. So that way you would tell your fleet, your FSR, you would tell them, hey, this vehicle is still active in our fleet. Okay, and then you would, the next one is the vehicle had damages when it was turned in. So sometimes when GSA gets the vehicle back, they may take a few months to actually submit those charges. So you can look at those charges and you can say, oh, okay, that makes sense, that's correct. The next one is if a vehicle was turned in early and you still had time on your lease. That could be a specific reason why. And then there's another one that is GSA is improperly billing the agency. So at one point we had, why we created this report is we realized that there was a vehicle that had been charged for over 18 months after it was turned in, and it didn't meet any of these criteria before. So we were able to get that money refunded. So it's just kind of like a checks and balances. So as you can see here, it's going to tell you the number of months and then the amount that it's been billed over. And then, you know, there's notes that you can put in here. So all of these things like this, the latest billing, that's the last time that it was seen in the bill. And then that's the latest inventory is the last time it was seen in the inventory report. So what you're going to want to do is, you know, certify that that has happened, and then this person has challenged it. And that just means that it's going on that report. So when you want to say, yes, it's been challenged. Nope, well, that looks like there's a bug there. So what's supposed to happen is when you go to the challenged portion and then you select yes, it's supposed to show you all the ones that are challenged. And then that way you can export this to Excel. So I'm going to make a note of that so that they can work on that. But does anybody have any questions about the build after disposal?
Audrey, there is a question. I don't know if you answered it yet from James Hunt. How do I load the VAM info that they submitted to their contractor? And obviously it came to me. Did you already answer that?
Oh, no, I didn't. So the VAM, there used to be like a button here that said the VAM, and then we kind of disabled it right now since the VAM season has passed. But let's see here. As a vehicle contact, you should still be able to get to it if you go to survey, and then let's see.
I think they wanted to know how do they load the VAM info, and actually we do that. Once you send me the VAM, and I guess how often are we doing this VAM? Well, anyway, when we did the VAM back in, I think, August, September, that VAM that you sent me, I sent it to Audrey and Net Digital, and they loaded it for us. So
Yes.
how often are we doing this VAM? Are we doing it every year now?
No, so the VAM is actually going to be every 5 years, but then Ron and Eric have said, like, if we get a new vehicle, we're going to do the VAM on that vehicle. So whenever I think we get all of the new acquisitions uploaded, then we will like re-release the VAM on just those vehicles. And so say that you were a person, when the Job Corps was doing it, we were doing it in Excel, and there is the opportunity for you all to do it in the site if that is easier for you, or we can continue doing it in Excel. So for, like, say for this person, for the VAM, it's just basically going to ask you questions about how many miles you expect to drive the vehicle, things like that. And then once you've completed them, it'll turn, you know, it'll turn green like you see here. This is from our uploads. So it'll fill in here, but say that you were going through and doing them one by one, it will just turn green as you're doing it. Okay, but we can definitely go through that. That can be like another training session once that actually occurs and we get more of, you know, exactly what Ron and them wants. Also with the Excel sheet. Okay, so I know that we did go a little bit long today, and I do apologize about that, but we do, everything else is, you know, pretty self-explanatory. This is just if you have questions about the data, again, use that support@netdigitalsolutions.com. The last thing is the monthly fleet report. So just letting you know, assuring you that the work that you're doing in autos is not just busy work. It's not something that, you know, we're just wanting you to do for the fun of it. It's actually going to really help us in the effort for FAST, because JCC is a huge, very complicated agency, and getting your help with all of this data, it's really going to help me, it's going to help Trish, and it's going to make our data quality better so that DOL is the best that it can be. And to that end, we get a monthly fleet report. We get that out to you on the 15th of every month. and actually you'll be receiving, well, Trish will be receiving that soon from Eric, and she's going to review everything at a high level and then kind of reach out to you all to see, okay, are you able to go in and correct this? Are you able to go in and correct that? And then as you guys do that, it's all kind of a team effort. Okay. So does anybody have any last minute questions on anything that I've covered or anything related to fleet?
Okay, I think we can wrap it up then.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Audrey. Thank you all for attending.
No problem. And if you guys happen to either miss part of this or anything like that, I'm going to be sending out this meeting link, and I'll also be conducting an training for DOL agency-wide tomorrow. So if you feel like you need, either one-on-one or something like that, you can contact me. We can meet prior to that, or you can attend that meeting as well. So there might be different questions, or you might hear something differently. Maybe I will say something really awesome in that meeting. So you can definitely attend if you'd like.
Hey, Audrey, real quick before you go, can you let everyone know when they'll receive their account information if they do not have it?
Yeah. Oh, this is a good question. So say that you were forwarded this by your fleet manager or your other fleet contact. If your name was not on the spreadsheet that I got, the account is not created yet. So please send me over your email and your JCC center, and I will get those added to the site. If you don't have your password, please also email support@netdigitalsolutions.com, and we can send that to you privately. So for any of that information, you can also try to do the forgot my password. If you'd like to do that on your own today, you should be receiving a link. Check your junk and your clutter. And if you don't, if that doesn't work for you, because sometimes DOL likes to block us, but if you're able to get through, you can do it that way, or you can have one of us assist you.
Can I ask one question too from the New Haven Job Corps Center?
Absolutely.
I always get the reports, and sometimes since this department has been put under my area, I used to do it many years ago, but forgot all this stuff, and it looks like a lot of things have changed. But because I have 2 drivers and we're doing this training, I can sit with them and train them on this because I expected them to be on the call, but they were driving. When information is needed and need to be inputted from you guys, they don't need to have privy to that information, right? It would just be me entering mileage information that's needed. Because I remember at one time, a couple of months ago, I received something to enter the mileage in that was miscalculated or so. I entered it. It was correct the way I entered it. I didn't know why I was entering it. So at this point, I think I probably will be calling Audrey just for some more updates and so I can make sure that I'm on the right page. I did take a lot of notes for it.
Yeah.
As far as with the drivers, I just want to know that they know the information that I'm going to be giving to them is what I just received from here on this training. But as far as inputting information, they don't need to have privy to that. It should only be one person, one location, correct?
It depends. So if you believe, because I know Job Corps centers are pretty different than our other agencies. If you feel like, okay, that should be their position and they're just driving and you're going to collect that information, then no, they don't need access. But what I like to think about is, if you were to get sick or go on vacation or something like that, who else is going to be helping you out? And so the site is designed to allow you to be able to delegate that to whomever you choose. Yeah. So if you need help, with GSA, it's a little bit more difficult because you can't assign, many different people, but you can go in here and decide whom you want to help you. And it could be those 2 drivers, or it could be one of your colleagues if, something does happen, because people go out of town or things like that, or you go on detail or whatever. So that would be up to you. there's no limit on the amount of, contacts or access to the site.
Okay, okay.
But it should be someone who you feel confident in and comfortable with putting in this data.
Got it. Okay.
But definitely, if you have those questions, I have a hard stop today at 3:30, but tomorrow morning I can definitely give you a call. You can, if they are able to attend the meeting tomorrow, that would be great. I can send you the information, or we can schedule like a one-on-one.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then, to that end as well, I have these YouTube videos that we are creating, so you'll be able to kind of catch that. I also have this training document that I will be sending out. So, if there is a part that you're like, I didn't really get what she said or whatever, or I had to drop off the call, you can go through that as well. Okay, anything else?
No, that's all I have.
Okay, perfect. Does
So
anybody, go ahead.
Tomorrow. You'll be sending us a link for tomorrow's training, right?
Yes, I can put that in. I can put that in the email for this one, so everybody has access to it.
Got it.
So it is tomorrow, actually at the same time from 2 to 3. And our lead, Eric, he is Ron's assistant fleet manager. He was not able to make it on this call today, but he's going to be there tomorrow as well. So if you have more specific, because I do autos, but he is, the assistant fleet manager, so he can answer a little bit more questions as well. And he's who I will also be asking, that park the vehicles with the next door, that question too. So if you have any more of those more policy related questions, he can answer those.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Trish, is there anything else that we need to touch on?
No, I'll send you an email for Hawaii. They keep asking when they'll receive their username. So I will send an email to you and Hawaii to connect you guys.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Thank you all for joining. Thank you so much, Audrey.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, everyone. I'll stay on for a few minutes if anybody has a question, but I will be leaving at 3:30. Okay.
Hey, Audrey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, just when you go to pull any of the questions from the chat, I responded directly to everybody. So I'm not sure if that only shows in my chat history or if it'll show in yours as well. So if you don't see it in your history, let me know and I'll either copy and paste it or I'll send screenshots of mine.
Okay, yeah, I'm not seeing answers.
You probably won't see anything until we officially close the meeting because it won't process and save it until everything's logged out.
Okay, so okay, yeah, I'm going through that now. So, and I'll pull some of the frequently asked questions to add to the document as well.
Yep, and then so, because it's a little bit of a longer meeting, the recording probably won't come up for a little bit. So we probably won't have that for another hour or so.
Okay.
Maybe sooner.
Yeah, so if, I'll just put that in the chat. The recording, I think I said it will be available tomorrow.
Yes, we told them tomorrow, which it will be. It's just going to take us a minute for it to process before we can convert it.
Okay, I'm gonna hop in the calendar invite and put the one in there before I have to go, okay?
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna log out. That way when you close out, it can start converting everything.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks, Audrey.
You're welcome.